Hello, welcome back to Up the Villa. This is our predicted lineup for Aston Villa v Man City. If you are new to our channel, make sure you are subscribing, smash the likes, and more importantly, get involved in the comment section down below, sharing your thoughts on everything that we discuss in this episode. A lot of you really enjoyed the match preview, so we're here with the predicted lineup. We're going to talk about Villa tactically in depth, and then we're going to have a touch over of Man City on some of the things that also we need to watch out for as well. And so, Justin, the lineup, we've got a lot to talk about because there's a couple of things that I really want to see from Aston Villa, and we've got to pick the players that can basically, in my head, follow the plan that I've got. But more importantly, I'll have to follow Unai's plan. But there's a couple of things that I want to touch on. So the first one is Man City's massive weakness this season is their central midfield. And I want to see Aston Villa absolutely plough through the centre of the pitch. I want to see us just be aggressive. I just want to see us just so aggressive and so intense in the middle of the park that Man City just can't live with our midfield to start with. So that's the first thing. But then I also want to see us playing out from the back really well and really comfortably. But then we also need to manhandle Haaland. A lot of teams are getting touch tight to him, not allowing him any space, any room to breathe. We need to have that as well. We also need pace up top to be able to run in behind and run the channels. But we also need to kind of probably play John Duran. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about. So what we're going to do, we're going to go straight into the lineup. And I'll get your thoughts as well, Em. So Martinez is starting in goal. I think that's pretty obvious. Talk to me about the back 4 or 5, please.
Well, I'll just say one thing. I went to Forest on Saturday and we sat and watched it very intently, the system with Cash playing that role on the right-hand side. And a lot of the time it was basically like playing wing-backs. But the amount of times especially when we attacked in the first half, so away from us, you could see the whole, we were behind the goal, the Villa goal, so you could see the pitch in front of you. The amount of Forest were very narrow at times. And the amount of times when Pau picked the ball up or Constance picked the ball up or Carlos, and Cash and Dean were literally on the touchline, and they had that much space. You could see it happening. I don't know whether it came across much on the game, and that switch ball across either one way or the other seemed to be the way we were trying to attack him. It never really worked. We never really got in, but that was interesting. The way that it was sort of the last 2 games we've evolved to this sort of wing back role. Now, I don't think we can do that against City, so I think this is the game where Cash drops out.
So, yeah. See, I think this is the perfect game for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Only because
I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Let me tell you why. Because
there is a reason behind why I'm saying that.
So this is how Manchester United played against them. And I actually felt like the width out wide was quite good when they got it out wide. Because if you look at Man City, they were quite narrow. And I just think if you look at Man City, how they're building up there, and if you're talking about, so we're on our left-hand side, so we'd have Luca Dean here, and we'd have Matty Cash here. There's actually space for us to exploit there. So I'm with you. I don't think this new formation should be something that we just keep playing each. I think it should be game dependent.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, for me, I think the 5 is we should do it in this game.
Okay. I'll relent on what I'm saying then, but that means in my team,
yeah,
we're going to have to make a decision on 2 players going forward because I want to get somebody else in the team, back in the team. So I'll relent and go with. But the other thing I would do is, as long as he's fit and healthy and ready to play, is I would leave Carlos out and Mings comes back in. But exactly the same
Justin.
way. because I've said it for many, many times now. You can play two left-sided central
Yeah, you can.
defenders in the same team.
You can.
Unai Emery said that now, so I'm glad he's backed up my stance because
Oh,
every
not
time I put
you.
it on social media, he came out and said people will go, "You can't play two left footers at the back." Yes, you can. So I would go Emmy, Dean, Pau, Mings, Concert, and then Cash in that right side role.
Yeah. That, for me, is my back six. Because what I think we need, we still need Pau in this game because Pau can pass the ball out the back. He can ping it. He can go long. He can play that pass that goes into that central midfield area, which is vital for us. But also having Mings at the back, because what I want to see from Mings is I want to see him getting touch tight to Haaland, and then we've still got Konsa as well. If we're playing out from the back in our build-up with the two keepers, well, the one keeper and the two centre-halves, sorry, then you've still got the left footer and the right footer. So I think that still works when you're playing out from the back anyway. And like you, he said that in his interview last week about playing Mings at the back with Pau still needs work. It needs time on the training ground. This is a good opportunity now because I imagine they've still been working on it. I imagine it's something that it's sort of like when you've got a bit of a project that you're working on and you've then got that little side hustle thing that you're doing at the same time, and he's working on that as well. Then we've got a full week to prepare for this game. And I just think for me personally, for as much as I don't actually think Carlos has been that bad recently. I don't think there's been any glaringly bad mistakes. You could say the pass to Cash, but I don't think. I think that's a mix up on pretty much everything. I just think I want to see Mings in the team. So his leadership, his talking, he gets overlooked. You know, if he's talking at the weekend and everybody's sort of like listening to him and pulling together, I don't think one of them goals happens. Maybe one of them does, but I don't think two of them. So I think that's what I'm going with at the back. So yeah. Do you want to
I
add
do
anything?
think Cash has got to be better as well. I'm not digging him out at all, but I think that's a pivotal position to play. Attack. You're asking a lot of Cash there. You're asking for him to get up the pitch, affect the game in the final third. You know, be an attacking outlet for us. But you're also asking him to tuck in, be a right back, and to defend. You know, it's a lot to ask for a player. You know, to do all those things at once. You know, Luca Dean's done it magnificently this season, and with this switch to this system with Bailey out, you're asking a lot of Matty Cash. You know, normally Bailey or McGuinness played that role, which is more midfield / attacker. So, and there's more emphasis on there on Concert sort of clearing up at the back. So, I just hope Matty Cash had a good game.
Yeah, I think what is also important as well is that we have that unpredictability about us playing against the Pep team. We've got to do something that's slightly tactically different that they're not planning for, that we can surprise them a little bit. And I think this probably would be able to do that. Now, the midfield double pivot is another interesting one. I think me and Justin are talking about this of what we would like to see. What you would like to see might be different, but for me, it's either this or it's going to be Carlos in there. So you'll take Mings out and you'll put Carlos in there. That's the difference that a subtle change could make. Now, I've spoke about the midfield a little bit, and I've spoke about how powerful I want it to be. I
Are we
might
on the
make
same? Are we on the same wavelength here?
I might make a subtle change in this game because of just how I've got in my head how we can be more combative / powerful. Now we could go with Tielemans, but I think this could work.
So, I totally agree. I've written down Onana and Kamara in the double pivot. And the reason why I said about Cash possibly not playing and was because I was going to try and squeeze Yuri in the sort of a more attacking role in the 8-10. But by retaining Cash in my team, it means we've got a decision to make in a minute who plays either McGinn or Yuri, but we'll sort that in a minute. For me, yes, I'm with you. Tielemans, his form has dropped a little bit. He was unbelievable at the start of the season, and I think the guy deserves probably a little rest at the moment. And I think Anana's back is fit. We've seen how impactful he was at the start of the season again. This is his natural role. This is the role we brought him in to be a destroyer. And Boubacar Kamara, I'm going to say this now, unless one of his legs falls off, I do not want to see that bloke taken off this pitch again because he's so important to us. When we took him off at the weekend, we definitely lost that a little bit in the middle of midfield. So probably currently, dare I say, along with probably Duran, one of our most important players and probably one of the first names in the team sheet right now. So he starts, and more importantly, he finishes this game in midfield. And I'd like to see this blossoming, hopefully, relationship between the two players that probably were earmarked at the start of the season to be the first choice in this position. So yeah, and with as we spoke about in the preview as well, they've got a lot of old legs in midfield. So I want to just trample all over them, and
Yeah,
these
same.
two for me are so
Yeah.
important to that.
Yeah, I look at that and I look at Onana and Kamara up against Silva, Gundogan, whether it might be Grealish in there, and
De
I think
Bruyne.
I think we've got the upper hand there, and I think with this as well, we've got more height because they are good on sort of set pieces with
Yeah.
Gvardiol, so that would give us that aerial ability as well. I'm surprised we've come onto that one, and we've both agreed. Now, the other one is something that we saw at the weekend was Rodgers off Duran. Now, I prefer Rodgers on the left. Now, I prefer that anyway. Rodgers on the left for me has to be the answer on Saturday because I want to see him running at Kyle Walker. I want to see him trying to exploit Kyle Walker because he's having a bit of a stinker at the minute, Walker. So again, I think Rodgers on the left is able to do that. And I feel like Rodgers, when he's on the left, he's got that little bit more, space to move around and pick the ball up in areas that his back's not to goal and it's not congested. He's not got sort of when he's on this side, I always feel like his space is limited. So I feel like if he's here, he can then sometimes drift and float around here. If we've won the ball on transition, he can be in around here, like he was against Southampton, and then he can drive as well. So I think Rodgers on the left. What are you going with?
I tell you what, the way we have sort of evolved, this has evolved over the last couple of games, this way of playing with Cash and Dean effectively as wing backs and having two really strong, solid centre midfielders there, double pivots. I would like to at some point, I'm not saying this weekend, but I'd love at some point to see a front three of Duran, Watkins and Rodgers. However that looks, whether it's Rodgers in the 10, two up front, whether it's Watkins off the left, Rodgers off the right, Duran up the top, but even a fluid three where they all just sort of float around causing havoc. I would love to see that at some point. I don't think that'll happen this weekend. That's just something I'm throwing in there as a bit of a think. I don't think it matters. Rodgers plays on the left, in the centre, on the right, because again, I think it's very fluid, especially playing wingers. I saw again a lot at the weekend when I was on about earlier when you saw Cash and Dean being really, really wide. A lot of the time, Rodgers, Duran, and McGinn were playing very narrow in a three up top, allowing sort of their fullbacks having to tuck in a little bit to mark Rodgers and McGinn, and that allowed Cash and Dean those hopefully a lot of space down the side. So yeah, I think Rodgers plays, and I think Duran plays. It's just what do you do? The other side probably stick with McGinn.
Okay, so So let's just find McGinn. Right. So we've got 4 players for 2 positions. One player for me, and I spoke about this in my match reaction on one of the episodes the other day when I was talking about the Watkins Duran sometimes has to be a bit of game dependent on who is better. We know that pace is massively important against this Man City team. And I think Watkins is key to running in behind, stretching this 2 at the back. I think Watkins has to play in this game, which would then mean if I'm saying Watkins has to start, I'm also saying Duran has to start as well, because Duran's scoring goals. So that would be my setup. Now, I just feel like, Watkins running, we've seen it, haven't we?
I get it, yeah. Yeah.
So we'll lose that if we don't have Watkins.
Like as you said, I agree. At some point, I don't agree Saturday. Sorry, I don't think that'll happen. But I would like to see it happen. I didn't think you'd go with that actually. When I said that from 3, I thought he'll probably say no. For me, 100% Rodgers starts and 100% Duran starts. He's currently in form. He's the player in. He's got that number 9 shirt. He's got that shirt now. He's moved ahead at the moment, currently, of Ollie Watkins, and he's our centre forward. What do you do? Tielemans' form has dropped a little bit. McGinn's form has been very patchy this season, in and out. I think it all comes down to, if we play Watkins in that position, then we are going all out for him. And I can totally understand why you think that, and maybe we could do that because we want to just dominate, hopefully have that attacking output. But I still think we've got to be a little bit cautious. And I think if you throw McGinn in there, he's got the ability to drop into that midfield. So if you have got De Bruyne, Foden, and Gundogan in there, you've got a 3-3 matchup, haven't you? And that still allows Duran and Rodgers to run the line. And with this formation as well, the impetus is on your full-backs to add that attacking impetus and be the attacking output either side. So do you need a Watkins, Duran, Rodgers in this formation? I don't know. I still, for me, think it's Duran and Watkins off the bench. And I'm thinking, and because we put cash in, it means Tielemans drops out.
Yeah. So I think I'll agree with that, Justin. I think that's got a good balance. If not...
It's the most likely, isn't it?
Yeah. If not, then it'll probably be this again. So it would probably be something like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe Carlos in for Mings. I'll ask you a question then. Would you say that Duran has to start?
Yes.
Over Watkins?
Currently,
is that because of the goals he's scoring?
We've got 2 centre forwards, and possession is 9/10 of the law, and currently he's in possession of the shirt, isn't he? I think he's made a phenomenal start to the season. He was rightly the substitute at the start of the season. He was the backup striker. Watkins was rightly our number 1 first choice striker. And football is football. Players either are in form or they're not in form. Watkins has done okay this season. He hasn't reached the heights of last season, and we've got a player in Duran who has impacted hugely off the bench. He couldn't have done any more to try and sort of persuade the manager that I can play this role. I am your man up front. And this run he's been on recently, 3-3 now. You can't leave a player out that's got 3-3. We was talking about Erling Haaland earlier, and when he's scoring goals every single game, you don't leave him out, do you? And you don't leave John Duran out. The goal he scored at the weekend against Forest was phenomenal. With the greatest win in the world, I've seen Ollie Watkins in those positions, and he's had one chance, Duran, that one cross, and he buries it. Unfortunately for our league, we've seen too many times when he's been in good positions and he hasn't. That's not to say he can't regain that form and he can't get it back. And there's nothing to say that he won't come off the bench at the weekend and score the winner. And that's the glory of having 2 really, really good players. We're a squad team now. not a first 11. And currently, John Duran is in possession of that shirt, so he starts for me.
Yeah, I think so. And what I also think are some of the areas then that I think are vitally important, and the areas that we will be looking to sort of exploit against Man City then. So I think the big thing is that if we're drifting in here and we're making up this little bit of a box midfield, and we can do that with Rodgers, McGinn, Kamara, Tielemans, I think that's vitally important. I also think that the width is going to be important as well, because you can see pretty much from the average position. If I go back to this one, what I've done is I've sort of drawn the Villa sort of where we can be, if that makes sense. And I think this is the average positions against Manchester United. So you've sort of got your back three there. You've got your wing backs that are getting into that area there. You've got our opposite wing backs. So you've got Cash and you've got Digne. So you can see how narrow Manchester City are centrally. So if we can get the ball out wide quickly, we can exploit that. But if you're talking about Rodgers, who's this little circle there, he can go into those areas as well. So I think that's something that we can look to try and exploit as well. We've got McGinn that can try and do the same and get in behind as well. And then we've got Duran that can lead the line and can run deeper as well. So I just feel like the balance of our formations should allow us to create chances and be structurally pretty sound. And yeah, I think the good thing about us just is we've got options, and we've got players
massively.
that can play different roles. I think Unai probably deserves credit as well, because viewers from a couple of weeks ago were hearing me saying that we need to mix it up. We need a bit more flexibility, and he's been able to do this with this subtle tweak. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. So I think we've had a pretty in-depth match preview and predicted lineup. So Villa fans, let us know your thoughts. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.